Saludos,
Hello,
habitantes de la ruta 1.
everybody, you inhabitants and dwellers
Un
of the
lugar muy
Rutacom.
lejano que
I'm
vosotros
coming
no
from the
conocéis.
remotest
Se
place
llama
on earth,
Fiscalía General
which
del
is
Estado
called the General
y está
Spain's
en la galaxia
Prosecution District
Administración de
Attorney,
Justicia.
which is in the
Y
Galaxy
vengo en son de paz.
Justice Administration. I'm coming here drumming the tones of peace. Wow.
Al menos esto es lo que aprendí en las películas de ciencia ficción.
At least this is what I learned from the science-fi movies, presenting two civilizations confronting, clashing among each other. I don't think we are confronting among each other. I want to thank Roman and all the Rooted.com organization for having counted on my support for this presentation and from this day. And following your mention, Cesar, the captain of telematic civil Spain's Guard crimes group. Cesar is like a hitchhiker highway between galaxies, between the crime scene, the computer scene, and Cesar gave me this towel, and okay, you guys get them, fetch the crimes. But what on earth is a fiscal, is a prosecutor, district attorney? What does district attorney do? Is a person who got a PhD degree in law, like judges, and after taking the civil examinations, we can choose between being a district attorney or a judge. Why do you want to be a prosecutor? And Richard Gere says, who want to be a referee when that person can be a player? Okay, you can do the proceedings, the legal proceedings, the investigation in a case, in a court case, prepares all the thing, but the trial is the real game, and the judge at court, at trial, is not being the active part. It sits at the head of the room, and the judge keeps silent, and then the prosecutor speaks and the defendant attorney speaks, and in the very end the judge starts speaking and gives a sentence. But during the trials, during the hearing, it will be the prosecutor speaking. Why is it so important for us to have a special unit in the Spain Civil Guard to research and investigate the cyber crimes? What is our point and intervention during the trial and the investigation by helping judges, we prosecutors, because sometimes we prosecutors are almost invisible. It's not about hijack, drug trafficking, but when it has to do with very specific connotations such as corruption, crimes against the labor laws, minor crimes here, the prosecutors plays an important role because judges, generally speaking, judges are not specialized in cyber crimes, even though you can find somebody in Spain civil court, somebody specialized in crime, in cyber crime. Judges cannot be that specialized, but myself being a prosecutor, I can specialize in many crimes, and I can do a lot of investigation on crime, on cyber crimes, even though I have some help from one of my fellow prosecutors. Let's start by the beginning. 1651, this year, 1651, Thomas Hobbes, this guy, this fellow, wanted to describe relationships in society. Hobbes, this philosopher, was very pessimistic. He said, when the human being is in freedom and liberty with no restrictions, we human beings are beasts. Hobbes, this philosopher, was very pessimistic. He says, okay, our existence, being human beings, our existence is lone, brutal, and cruel. As you can see, Thomas Hobbes was very optimistic on the other side. But since 1651, his analysis of human behavior is updated, because Thomas Hobbes thought that we need somebody more powerful than one single person to keep us firm, to avoid clashing with each other, because when the human being is free. We are in the state of nature, which is the war of everybody against everybody. Thomas Hobbes' best phrase was that human being is a wolf for the human being. And Thomas Hobbes came up with a biblical monster, which is the Leviathan. The Leviathan, with this monster on screen, is made up of single human beings, but this slide doesn't give us enough quality. This biblical Leviathan is the state. The state creates the enforcements, bodies, the tribunals, the courts, the public health system, the security social system. These things protect us from themselves, but who is the Leviathan on the internet? And there is no sense that this Leviathan, this biblical monster, is going to appear. But in principle, when the internet started in our lives, when it was the dreamt of Arcadia, happy Arcadia. According to Hobbes, it was the jungle, the state of nature. The state of nature is ruled by some norms triggering permanent conflicts, which are competition, invading somebody because I want to take that from that person, distrust. I want to invade you because I am afraid you're going to invade me before. And okay, my glory, I won't be the coolest guy on earth. That's why I'm invading you. And this applies to today as well. It's still applied even in the world of computer sciences, and cybersecurity is still applied because we are moved by these basic pulsions and vibrations. Even though somebody is speaking about the devil from Bible, this when there is a security incident, sometimes the guy behind us is eager to compete. He wants to take something from us. It's moved from this anxiety of competition, and somebody behind the security cyber scene is moved by distrust. No one has to invade me, and somebody is acting because okay, we are proud of ourselves. We like to be pat on our shoulders and our back. Cybersecurity has its own rules, by the way. That's why I did some research and I documented regarding the rules for computing audits. I checked the INTECO, which is the Early Response Center in Spain, and TECO has some guidelines such as prevention, identification and detection of the intruder, the contention of the source, collecting evidence, and reporting to the superior. This is our map, our road map when it comes down to tackling an incident. The road map. What does this have to do with the criminal law, where we prosecutors and judges are moving around and we are coping with these cyber crimes? The most appropriate metaphor to explain it will be like that. Two worlds in collision, because what principles are moving the criminal law? These principles have anything to do with those ruling the cybersecurity? Are these principles incompatible? Because cybersecurity means everything has to work properly, nobody has to mess around. Our place is to investigate why they do and how they do. But when somebody is sneaking through some computing system doing and does something improper, we need to move on to the next level. And once the computer science have played a role or not, let's move on to the criminal courts, this farthest galaxy I mentioned. There are some different points and principles in this justice galaxy. I want to adapt my volcano words to your terrestrial and earthlings' minds. We are talking about the principles of orality and immediacy. orality, the principle of orality means that the evidence has to be shown and developed in front of the judge in a verbal way. How coherent you are, because the Gürtel takes 2,000 tomes or volumes, many pages on seats, until the register in the court says, okay, oh, this tome can't take any more pages, let's move on to the next book. So, roughly speaking, I think the Gürtel plot case is about 750,000 sheets of tomes and volumes for the judge. So the prosecutor, Olga Sanchez, dealing with the 11th March terrorist attack, we went through some corridors with many archives and records on both sides. They told me, okay, this is the 11th March terrorist attacks papers on both walls, about 70,000 sheets number and other the same amount of non-numbered. Gürtel is 3 times this number of sheets. I can imagine, okay, my goodness, this building, this court building, is full of files, archives, folders all around, messy around. So Spain's justice administration can make the whole Amazon gobble by doing all this paper thing and paperwork. So much written paper, so much ink spent, so much toner wasted. And in the brain, we say, okay, everything has to be put in an oral way. Is this coherent in ourselves? Because, like I said, the trial case is like a train. The very important part, the gross part, is at the trial, during the hearings, because those of you who remember the terrorist 11th March case at court, you can remember when Rafa Fugan declares, I'm not guilty, I'm super non-guilty. Oh, that was a trial, and the written thing was in the archives, but during the trial, everybody has to speak. Now, the principle of immediacy. Immediacy means that it has to be performed, the hearings have to be performed in front of the judges. You cannot take the statement from the witness. That's why when you take the corpse from the crime scene, a judge must be with the forensics to perceive the tests, the evidence, to be convinced that these facts are fitting within a category of the law and make these facts come something real. This is called in some sanction, which is the absorption, underlying absorption. So through this underlying absorption, the Spanish judge needs to perceive the facts, and when there is a body, a dead body in the street, the judge has to say, there you go, he is a dead person. So when somebody says, okay, an intrusion has been produced by introduction of SQL, what's on earth? Somebody has sneaked in through my computer. Through what door, by the way? Okie dokie. More principles of the criminal law: contradiction and defense. Contradiction means that everybody said by the defendant. Everybody said by the district attorney has to be contrasted by the defendant attorney. The defendant says everything is a lie. The defendant needs and has to be given the opportunity to say, this is untrue, I'm not guilty. We cannot avoid the defendant using the tools and the weapons to defend their own client. So if you have a computer system being intruded, and you connect and switch on the wires, I'm gonna put some patch, I'm gonna update this and upload this. I remove the virus and I switch it off, and I'm living home. We got this guy on a cyber cafe, and we got it red-handed. And please prove it to me. we arrange it. No, please show me at court before me the judge what this so-called guilty did. I can't go back. This is a severe question because that's why the informants procedure attacking cybercrime is the preservation of the criminal and digital evidence, which is stored, sealed, stamped, sent to the laboratory, and connected to the applicator, which avoids to insert new data, and everything is cloned. And with your cloned duplicate report, you do all the performances and the testing. This guy was doing child pornography on Yumu, and we know all these files were shared because it appeared on .com, and this guy shared some folders and files with this extension. Cool. And the defendant attorney says, I don't believe it, I don't buy it, I have to do my own tracking. Please give me and bring your own testing specialists, and let's do the contradiction. But during this contradiction process, the police has the original evidence. For example, let's see that we got a cache of 250 kilograms of pure coke, but we need to give some remains for the defendant lawyer to say, okay, no, it's not coke, it's perhaps flour. Let's do some counter testing on this so-called flour. But the defendant attorney says it wasn't cooking, it was a detergent, a washing power machine. We applied the principle in dubio pro reo. In case of a doubt, you are released. So, beyond any reasonable doubt, we need to prove that the defendant can trigger this doubt. According to Spain's criminal law, if the defendant's attorney generates this doubt among us, the defendant is going to be released. So, one important principle also is the legality principle. We have the law. We cannot jump off the written law. But in criminal law, the principle of legality is absolutely brutal. Why? Because in other branches of the laws, we have customs, we have the general principles of law, which are philosophical affirmations, which are very nice. But for the criminal law, which is not written in the law, it does not exist. If something does not appear in the criminal procedure code, it's not a crime. So we find the great next adversary, which is the high technology creator of laws, which is the Parliament. The Parliament, here we go. I will exemplify with a metaphor, before which I have to say I take on the right of being a university professor. I'm researching the cybercrime phenomenon, and I use my right of being a university professor. During my time at college, I learned the principle of Carnix, the meaty or the meat, the flesh programmer or developer. Some companies outsource the meat chopping process from other companies and vice versa, and in the very end, the minced meat is done by extra students. This applies to the criminal proceedings. Listen, Mayan, you are a bad student. What can I do? You decide to affiliate to the political party, being young, and you become a councilman, and then you are upgraded to be the housing and urbanization councilman who touch the money, and then you move on to the autonomous region vote, and then move on to be a member of parliament, and then there you go. You have to elaborate and create a law. So they create the drafting of bill commissions, which are outsources. This is outsourcing. We're going to outsource a study done by judicial people, and in the very end, they get texts where they are, okay, the hide and seek game. Yeah, my political party says, you have to give me this, we have to change this, in exchange of this, and there's something like the 197 article from the criminal law, which was the article criminalizing the concept of ethical hacker, because the Council of Europe blame on us. In Bucharest, we signed the convention of us against the cyber criminality, but our civil code didn't take the principles of this convention. We said, okay, the intrusions in computer systems are a crime, no matter what the objective is for these intrusions, because in the criminal law in Spain said something about the intermission in the intimacy. For those who are vulnerating some other secrets by taking secrets and emails and messages in emails, they take over from them. It's not a man in the middle, to put it this way. It's not to take over something from other, is to impede somebody accessing something. With your account of your server in the cloud, somebody reads this message before you do. Did they take over from it? They own it? Of course they did, because they read it before you did. Violating secrets, intimacy. Approximately, roughly speaking, what's going on here? Two examples. In the autonomous region of Canary, there was a computer person who set up the system in the presidency, and he redirected all the staff to his own email address by getting all the president emails in his own account address, and he sent them over to the opposition party. He was God. He was caught. They checked. Okay, they checked the server, and they noted that all these emails were redirected to the opposition party. It was the civil servant computer person, but the judges said, okay, this is not intimacy. There were political questions. Intimacy is the most private sphere in a human being. If they would have said, he would have said that the president was cheating on his woman, but if they're sending emails about, okay, this government was passing around emails of corruption in bribes, okay, this computer person was absolved, was declared not guilty. Second example, computers, professors, students at university passing around emails, intimacy, and okay, judge says, is there intimacy going on? Is there messing around? They're meddling around? No, they're talking about exact sciences. It's not private. It's not intimacy. So this guy is not guilty, said the judges. There was a TV showman which was an expert at this court. So this event was not useful. So let's now criminalize the computing intrusions in a very, very random way. And the article 197.3 didn't know what they were doing, and they did a copy and paste, and I will show you on screen. Criminal procedure, the person who is getting and skin through other people's house or against their will, and this is the 197, the one without authorization of the owner, sneaks in against the person or the owner will or consent. How can somebody be inside some computer systems without the consent of their owners? Oh my goodness, This is fuzzy science. At the conference with lawyers, I said to them, okay, the fact of accessing something is a metaphor. It's not true. I'm not getting through the wire and I'm dragging around myself towards and onto the server. This is not feasible. This is not real. Somebody accessing a system is because this person made a data request from his terminal and the server gave a valid response by introducing the appropriate key, and that's it. But if you pull out of the cable, the one who was is not now. So we had a case of an intrusion of in a website, in some websites hosting companies having an employment portal. We saw some hackers. Hackers obtain increasing privilege permissions and start downloading the database of people demanding, looking for a job. They got a list of possible phishing target people. Oh, they offered me a job on the internet. I thought it was a legitimate and legal job, but it wasn't like this. It was done through phishing. What do they want to do? They want targets and objectives. Job seekers, people despair for finding a job because these job seekers desperate can get into the phishing con. What's going on here? I tried to recover the control. In the very end, they pull out of the string and intrusion was over. All of a sudden, after rebooting, he used the secure mode and there was nobody inside. It wasn't a Chinese guy, it was a Mexican person. There you go. These are the guys, the MPs, the member of parliament performing and drafting the bills and the laws, because laws cannot be jump off. But we can short circuit, or we can surround these laws. Let's become naughty. Let's bypass these laws. Let's be naughty.
Hay un abogado, y sin embargo amigo.
There is a lawyer, also a good friend, whose name is Carlos Sánchez Almeida. He's highly notorious amongst the hackers community because he has defended many experts and, well, many hackers, people who were not behaving nicely or good. You know, he's a hacktivist. And, well, this is known as hacking the law. Well, it is a bit unpolite type of term, I would say. Well, because the first norm that I learned about hackers is that you do not really name yourself as a hacker. But this is quite right. Well, because the movement of hackers, before it became something of a bad reputation, well, before the essence of hackers has always been the essence of someone who is so much knowledgeable of a tool that he's using that not even the manufacturers get as far as he gets. Well, that's what I do with law. I achieve with law things that policymakers never thought of me doing. And I'm serious. Okay, let us talk about a different crime, ID theft. Well, before that, let me mention that Article 997.3, well, it was applied whatever the purpose was. So if you found a vulnerability in the IP surveillance cameras that are sold everywhere to surveillance or to monitor a store, and then if you hack the password and then you get access to the interior of the store or, I don't know, the dressing room of girls, well, perhaps someone in this room did that, was the person who did that, and that could be considered a crime. And actually, to my mind, he was making a favor. And I said, look, there is a problem here. I'm not going to misuse it. I'm not going to do something wrong. But if someone could misuse it, could do it. So whenever the reform came out, well, I wrote an article on security by default, and the name was Steampunk. The 19th century is rescuing hackers. That is to say, I wanted to use a norm from the civil code from the 18th century, where that says that if you are at home and then you start to have leaks from the neighbor, you are entitled to go to your neighbor's home and to call a plumber to fix the problem. Your purpose is not a bad one. You are not going into there, breaking into his home just to gossip. Okay, you just want to fix a problem that is damaging you. Well, I guess that hackers, most of the times are just giving a solution to a problem that affects us all. So hacking is not a crime, and I partially agree with that. Well, let us talk about ID theft now. Do not look for it on the penal code. It does not exist. Doesn't it exist? Well, every day we hear in the news that dangerous hackers, perhaps this is, but they're making wrong use of the term, they are thefting the identity of people. They are stealing people's identity. Okay, let us go to table of contents, penal code, that does not exist. Well, what is the closest to that? Okay. Taking up civil status. What is that? This is a very ancient crime that punished the person who pretended to be someone else. And that was applicable to family life, work life. Well, Somersby, can you remember, is a film made by Richard Gere with Jodie Foster. She is a soldier, and he pretends to be the husband of Jodie Foster. She believes that they go and live together. Then Jim Carrey was in the most recent one, name of it being Majestic. The setting is the Second World War, back in the 50s. And so, what were you? Well, a person coming back from war, pretending that he was in the war. So this is kind of stealing your civil status. So, for instance, when someone opens up a Facebook account under your name, then invites people to become your friends, etc., then law enforcement agencies send that case to the courts, and then the Supreme Court said, no. The full identity of the person has not been stolen. Therefore, that article or that crime is not applicable. So they say that it is not the same thing and that cannot be. And then, therefore, what can we do? And now we want to be creative. Okay. Registry. For registration on Facebook, I'm going to create a user, his name, and then I'm going to put a password. Okay, this one by default, male. But what happens with that on that tab? What is that doing there?
Eso se llaman condiciones generales de la contratación.
These are terms and conditions.
De hecho, hay algunos que tienen más texto que
It is endless. Sometimes it looks like a novel.
Entonces, desde el momento en el que yo
So
creo
the
un
moment
usuario,
I create a user, name, surname, then password,
y hago clic,
and then I click on register,
¿qué estoy haciendo? Estoy firmando un
what I'm
contrato.
doing, I am signing a contract.
Porque el usuario y la contraseña
Because
son
the
la forma más
user,
simple que hay de firma
name,
electrónica.
and the password are the
Tanto el Código de Comercio como el
simplest
Código Civil, como la Ley de
signature
Servicios y Sociedad de la
you can
Información,
find.
hablan de los contratos firmados a distancia.
And then, well,
Dicen que cuando
in
uno
the law,
se somete
there
a
is
las
a
condiciones
reference
generales de un
to
contrato
contracts or agreement signed in the distance. So whenever a company offers a number of services to clients and clients agree to receive those services, those clients are signing a contract. And then faking, the faking crime on the document is applicable whenever someone signs on your behalf. in order to fake you, and that is penalized. So perhaps here we are just talking about false documents. Well, we have to continue looking into the law so that we end up doing with the law whatever was unthinkable by policymakers that we could do with the law. However, our penal code is not a problem, because the norms and the crimes under the penal code are just like this traffic. Well, this road is the penal procedure. If the code is strict, the pathway that we have to follow to trial a person and to give sentence or judgment to this person have to be followed very, very careful, because you cannot really fail it, okay? You cannot mistake it. Because if you don't follow the right path, this could happen to you. Error 120, expelled. Well, error 120, it is an article included in the disciplinary code for judges, saying that lawyers cannot listen to conversations or tapping conversations between accused and lawyers. Okay. Procedural laws are very, very important. However, this law is from 1882. Well, same as, you know, this cake that we have in Spain that we eat at Christmas time from 1985. And also, it dates back from the time where telephone was invented by Graham Bell. History of telecommunications. But of course, the policymakers were not anticipating tapping in the future or anything. Well, tapping was included in the law in 1998. And what have they done in that regard? Only half an article to regulate the way to investigate drug trafficking, organized crime, and the European Union is all the time telling us that we should change that. We should change that always or as soon as possible. Well, this is entry and search for our law. Many, many boxes full of things, full of papers. The police take them away with them, and at the end of the day, well, this is a box of data, same as a hard drive. And what happens if you have a server in the cloud? What do you do then? Well, what do? You take the Stargate door and then you make it to the server and you take the cloud with you? Well, as Igor would say, from Frankenstein, it could be worse. And then Victor Frankenstein says, how? I said, well, I could see you. And it is raining because the European Union is there. And what does the European Union do to us? The EU helps us. Well, after the July terrorist attacks in London, I say, okay, let's unify these type of crimes for severe terrorist attacks, for child pornography, this and that. And then release the directive to preserve data for telecommunications companies, forcing them to store data and data, many data, and then to be stored for the next number of years. And I say all of them will have this common denominator. Well, let us see what happens later on, because as I told you before, we have this problem with these files. Go and tell a judge that you have a ransomware scheme, that you have a network of bots, that you have a Trojan that encrypts the data of the corporate server, and that you cannot access your data. And then you could say, your judge will have to use this network to find this person guilty, and then the judge really go nuts. Well, that's what is happening to us. We have a case of ransomware. One of the companies is closed because the files are encrypted, and I'm asking them to use a honeypot network. We are ready to do that, but the judge does not give me the permission to do that, does not give me the permit to do so.
Si
I
el
told you
legislador
about
europeo nos había dicho mínimo con
Europe.
un denominador, pues nuestros políticos, con su nivelazo de
They said
matemáticas, pusieron
minimum
"No, eso
common
era como el máximo como un
denominator.
múltiplo, ¿no?
And they say, oh, okay,
Vale,
multiple.
porque la ley 25/2007 lo que
Because
dice
Law
es que los datos de comunicaciones
25-2007
solo se
says
podrán pedir en
that
caso de delito grave. Solo en
communication
caso de
data could
delito
only be
grave.
requested in
Entonces nos vamos al
cases of
artículo 13 del
severe
Código Penal y
crime.
dice, delito
Then
grave
we
son aquellos
go
que
to
llevan pena
Article
grave.
13 and I say, well, those ones are the ones that carry
Bien,
or
de nuevo el capitán
entitle
obvio al rescate.
severe
Bien, nos vamos al artículo 33 que dice
judgments.
penas graves
And
son
then Article
las penas de
33
prisión,
says
privativas de libertad en general y
severe
privativas de otros derechos superiores a 5 años.
sentences are
Más de
those
5 años de cárcel. ¿Qué delitos
whose
informáticos tienen más
where
de 5 años de
freedom,
cárcel? Ninguno.
deprivation of
Pornografía
freedom
infantil,
is
hasta
above
5 años.
5 years.
Estafa informática,
Okay.
hasta 4 años.
And,
Intrusión
well,
en sistemas informáticos,
and this
hasta
is not
2
the
años.
case for
Bueno,
any
pornografía
of the
infantil,
crimes.
si son,
Well,
no
child
sé,
pornography,
actos sadomasoquistas sobre un bebé de
well,
6
if
meses,
there are,
puede ser hasta 9
if
años. Pero salvo eso,
sadomasochism
las cosas más
is
normales de niños de
done to
12
baby, whatever,
años,
could
tales
be
definidos por el
many
EMURE,
years.
hasta 5 años.
But I don't know, well, child
Entonces, ¿qué pasa con esto?
pornography, transferring
Pues eso
files
no
on
va a pasar en nuestro
immune,
país.
maximum
Por favor, hay muchas
sentence,
cosas que no
5
sabemos.
years.
Pero los que se empiezan a dar cuenta de que existe dicen,
But those
soy
who are realizing
un respeto. Yo no soy como ese que ha
this
salido
type of
antes. Yo
problems,
no me salto la legalidad
well,
vigente.
some judges
Y si
says,
la ley
well,
25/2007
if
dice que
law
no se puede investigar si es pena de menos de 5
25/2007
años,
it says that I
no se
cannot
investiga.
investigate this
Y
crime
punto.
if the sentence is below 5
Y tú
years,
ves a la
I will
víctima
not
y
investigate
dices,
it.
"Me cago en la leche".
And then you take a look at the crime and the victim, and the victim is just helpless. And one day I had a revelation. Once I was driving, nighttime, my children were watching a film, and then I was remembering this case, Barroja. She was a Twitter user. She was sending, tweets against the president of the government. Going to tattoo myself with the face of the person who would kill the president of Spain, this kind of thing. Well, she was very easy to find. She had a photograph on Twitter and was the same photograph on Facebook.
Yo había hablado con algunos compañeros del foro de fiscales que tenemos, no os digo dónde, porque os
And then I had discussed this with some of my colleagues on the public prosecutor forum that we have. I'll tell you what it is on Facebook. And actually I says, well, you are not wearing the codes as a judge. And then I said to that lady, okay, she is this lady. And I could remember this face as I was driving, this photograph as I was driving. And I say, why do we have 3 judges? Well, because that crime is punished with less than 5 years in prison. And then I had a revelation. I just fell off the horse, so to speak, and I said this crime, supporting terrorism, has an associated sentence of punishment above 5 years. 5 years, and I said that is a severe crime. And what happens with the threats, harassment to minors? According to this article, they could have an accessory punishment of prohibition of communication with the victim. Well, for instance, someone's put into prison for 2 years, and then I say, okay, for 2 years, do not get close to that person. Well, he will serve that because he will be in prison for 2 years already. So if a person who makes threats is put into prison for 1 day, the punishment or obligation to not to come close to the victim could be above 5 years, that is to say, a severe crime. So therefore, I've gone beyond the limits of the law 25-27. So I did an exploit for that law. That's what I did. I made an exploit for that law.
Profit, como decís vosotros. Objetivo conseguido.
Well, profit, as you say, achieved objective.
explicaros las cosas que hacemos en la Fiscalía y tal y cual. Pero si sobre todo vine aquí,
Well, this
aparte
is
de
all
para explicaros
very
nuestro trabajo,
nice or
era por una
whatever.
cosa,
Well, I
porque
came
podemos
here
seguir con lo
today
que
to
consistimos,
tell
como esa
you
diapositiva
what
que
we
os,
do
que os
at the
enseñé antes
public
de las mismas en
prosecutor's
televisión.
office.
Lo podemos hacer como si
Well,
fuéramos
we could
los
do
personajes de
like
vosotros.
if, I
Que
don't
uno
know,
cree que
we
los
had
otros son
two
los fantasmas, ¿no? Los
planets
fantasmas sois
colliding with
vosotros.
each
Los
other.
hackers y juristas
So
podemos ir por ahí,
hackers and
tocarnos
judges
como
could
si
clash
fuéramos
with each other
ectoplasmas que no
all
nos
the time
reconocemos.
without
Y eso no
recognizing each
beneficia a
other.
nadie.
However, this is
Porque la
not
Fiscalía
beneficial to
Anticorrupción
any of
acaba de tener
us
un problema
because the
muy serio de seguridad
Anti-Corruption
informática. Ha
Public
salido en prensa,
Prosecutor
me parece.
Office has just
Varias
had a
instituciones
very
informáticas que se han
serious
robado
problem
datos
of
dicen que del caso
IT
NOS,
intrusion,
de la Gürtel, de casos de delincuencia
data
organizada. O sea,
from
no solo nos
Gürtel
estamos ganando
and from
ninguna guerra,
many
sino que
other
somos como un
cases
fuerte
have been
rodeado de indios,
stolen.
perdón, de
So
nativos
we
americanos.
are just surrounded by
Pero es que a
Native
vosotros os pasa lo
Americans.
mismo. Hace
And
unos
well,
meses,
the same
uno de los
happens to
vuestros,
you.
que
A few
se
months
conoce
ago,
como H,
some of
también estuvo
yours,
en contra
whose
de
name
fuerzas de
was
seguridad.
H, also clashed
Entonces
with
yo
the law
creo
enforcement agencies
que
or
lo mismo
forces.
que en el juego de Ender, de
So same as the
esta imagen,
Dender game,
todos los países ante
where
la
I got
amenaza
this
inséptica se
logo,
juntan y forman la flota
all
internacional.
the
Yo creo que tenemos que unir
countries, when they
fuerzas en
feel
lugar de pelearnos
threatened, they
entre
come
nosotros.
together and they make up this
No sé
international
ni cómo,
fleet.
ni
I
cuándo,
think
ni
we
de qué
should come
manera, porque yo
together.
no
We
represento a la
should
Fiscalía General
gather
del Estado.
forces
Yo
together.
soy un
I don't know
purito
how
de
to do
justicia,
it.
el fiscal
I'm
de
not the
turno no tiene nada.
representative
Hay
of
otros
the
que tienen la
public
responsabilidad de
prosecution
decidir cómo
office.
se tiene
I'm
que hacer.
just a worker.
Creo que este es un buen
It's up
primer
to
paso.
others to
Creo
define
que
how
estar
to
aquí,
do that.
intercambiar
But this is the
conocimientos,
first good
conoceros, que
step,
vosotros me
being
pongáis
here,
cara. Creo
exchanging
que eso es
knowledge,
importante.
you know, so
Establezcamos
that you
puentes,
can see my face,
que
you can
sepamos
put a
quiénes
face
somos y
to
dónde
me,
estamos
to
y a
establish
quién podemos
bridges,
acudir cuando
to
hay un
know
problema
who
de
we
un
are.
lado o del otro.
Okay, and to know
Ya
that we can
vendrán otros
contact
más
each other
importantes
whenever
que
we
yo
need
que
each other.
establezcan
And I'm sure there will be
cómo se
people
regula
above
todo
me
esto y cómo
who
se
would
hace la
establish how
colaboración.
to
Tal, porque
regulate all
Internet
that,
no es
how
la
we
calle,
can
Internet
collaborate
es un
with
mundo
each
distinto.
other. Internet is not the street. The
Así que espero
internet
que
is a
esto sea
different
un primer
world.
paso,
So I hope
porque
that
os
this is the
aseguro que la
first
criminalidad
step,
informática es como
because I
meterse
can assure you that
dentro de un panel de
IT
abejas. La
crime
mayor
is
parte de las
like
veces sale
going
uno lleno de
into,
picotazos. Pero bueno, de vez
I
en
don't know,
cuando uno consigue algo de
into
miel.
something
Por
really
ejemplo, esta misma semana, la Fiscalía del Tribunal
difficult to
Supremo
go
ha
to.
aceptado interponer un recurso,
So, for instance,
le han dado
this
el visto
week,
bueno, contra una sentencia que absolvía unas mulas de phishing.
well,
Esta sentencia puede hacer
sentence
historia
has
en las
been
causas de
given
persecución del
to
phishing.
some people who was
Pero de
doing
vez en cuando uno
phishing.
consigue algo
So now
incluso
and
más
again,
sabroso que la
we
miel,
achieve
la
something
jalea
like
real, el
even
alimento
like
de la
nicer
realidad.
than honey.
¿Qué es para
That
mí la
is to
jalea
say,
real?
royal
Pues el privilegio
jelly.
de poder hablar
And
en
what
estos
is
foros
to me the royal jelly? Well, the privilege of talking to a forum, to an audience such as this one.
Un señor con corbata, oh Dios mío.
Oh, yes, do you think that I'm dangerous
He
because
dicho
I'm
que me
wearing a
amparaba la libertad
tie?
de cátedra.
Well, I told you before that I can exercise my right of academic freedom, so I can say
Bueno,
as much as I want.
larga vida y prosperidad, ¿eh?
Well, long life and
felicito.
prosperity.
Espectacular.
Congratulations,
Una pregunta breve. Como he
impressive
visto que,
talk. A very
en
brief
cierto
question.
modo, obedeces
I've seen,
además has utilizado tú el palabra revelación.
well, you talked
Pues
about a
te diría que
revelation.
Nos has hablado de dos que has tenido.
So
que
you
han surgido,
told us about
pero
two
seguro que hay alguna que te está
revelations
rondando en
that
la
were
cabeza
successful
y que todavía no has
or
dado
that
clavo con
came
ella.
out. And I'm sure that you
podrías
have
decir
kind
el
of
caso que
a
resolvería muy
revelation
brevemente?
waiting in your mind, going round and round your mind. What would be
Complicada, de
the,
verdad,
I don't know,
Porque es que,
what
si te
would
digo
that
que no se me resisten
revelation
ninguna, voy a quedar
resolve? Well, if I'm going to
Mira,
tell you that
el
at the
caso
end
que
of
has
the day I
mencionado
have all
de
kinds
las
of
mulas de
revelations, like,
phishing ha sido un
well,
caso sangrante.
what I
Porque
resolved about
el tema de las
phishing,
mulas de phishing,
the
nunca
phishing mules.
cogemos al que desarrolla el
We never
troyano,
catch
ni
the
al que lo
person
diseña, ni al que
who
recluta las
develops the
mulas. Lo
Trojan,
único que
those
cogemos es al
who
tío que recoge la
spread
pasta y
it.
la manda a Ucrania.
We only get the
Y no digo
person
Ucrania porque esté de
who
actualidad, es porque
collects
el
the
90%
money
de las
and
transacciones
sends it
acaban en
out to
Ucrania.
Ukraine. So 90% of money
Hay que pasar
transactions
el problema
end up in
por algún
Ukraine.
lado, y aunque solo
So
sea
you
metiendo
really
miedo
need to fix
a
the
los que hacen
problem.
esto, haciéndoles saber que están
And
cometiendo
sometimes
algo
you
ilegal.
you fix the
Entonces,
problem
la
by
respuesta que estaban dando la mayoría de los tribunales era considerarles partícipes en una
frightening those who are behind all that.
porque
And they
ellos
were
no saben
they wanted to
exactamente el
consider
alcance de la
them
trama, no
as
conocen
those,
qué troyanos
I
está
don't know,
utilizando,
doing
no conocen a las víctimas. En realidad lo que hacen es recibir un dinero
swindle or scam. They don't know what they are doing. They're just getting money coming from
conocimiento
a
más que probable de
crime,
que es un delito
well,
y
or
mandarlo fuera del país para que se le pierda la
knowing
pista.
that
Y
it's
esto es una
very
definición muy clara
likely
del Código
to
Penal,
come
en
from
un
a
artículo
crime
distinto que el de la
and
estafa.
sending it
Está regulado en
out
el delito
on
de
the
capitales.
country, and that is money laundering. Money laundering is done by negligence. Okay, that's the most fitting. But actually, I accused the fishing mule against all odds. He was not only sentenced, but also the person owning the computer with the IP from which the money transfer was sent. But the Supreme Tribunal, and say only through the IP you cannot really condemn a person. I was morally convinced that the person wasn't related to the IP. We asked him, he didn't want to answer. We asked his computer to do some search, and he denied, he refused to give us the computer. And then the audience says, yes, he was guilty, and then the Supreme Tribunal said no. So the mule was absolved, and said he had no intention to scam. And what happened with the money laundering? And then from there onwards, all the phishing cases have been absolved. So my question is that this source could be historic. Well, this could be a historic success or victory, because things are very likely to come back to place. Okay, perhaps this is not a scam, but it is negligent money laundering. Well, because at the end of the day, phishing, if I'm not giving, or if they don't give me the reason, okay, phishing at the end of the day will not be punished.
Gracias. Enhorabuena por la presentación.
Congratulations on your wonderful presentation. Very quick question. What do you think the hacker community has thought about you, or what image did they have about you up until a few minutes ago? And then any suggestions for hackers to improve coordination and cooperation with you? Well, as Jack the Stripper would say, okay, let us do this by part. Well, I've used a humorous tone. I wanted the audience to laugh. And the thing is that I was very much afraid of you thinking that I was just a talking person, you know, reading and reading pages and pages. I've seen that before, you know. I've seen magistrates and public prosecutors and lawyers giving talks in that fashion. Well, I'm really sorry for the camera operator, because I've been moving and moving about. Well, me, when I go to homicides trials, you know, I move about all the time so that the jury does not fall asleep. All right, so as I say, I was very much afraid of you feeling that I am a very outdated person who doesn't understand you, but I hope I have proven you wrong. In terms of establishing coordination, well, as I told you before, I'm not the right person to define that. When I mentioned to the person I report to that I was coming over here, all right, he said, okay, it is better for you to go over there, because you can say something which sounds like really, I don't know, provocative, you know, at a personal level. The person above me could not have talked in the same fashion that I talked, you know, because she is a magistrate of the Supreme Tribunal. Of course, she has to be always very serious in whatever she says. Okay, I don't know how to establish that coordination. But as I say, we shouldn't leave that up to the parliaments, okay? To the Houses of Parliament. Well, this is my first step. I am here. I introduced myself. I came with my computer, with all my connections closed, everything. You know, I removed the sound drivers, you know, because I have a paranoia. And, well, that's what I did. I just protected my computer. Jorge, I'm really interested in finding out how we can do it, because we don't really want to have cases such as, you know, what happened with H. I'm not going to collaborate with you so that you put me in prison for 2 nights, eh?
El asunto de H es un ejemplo perfecto.
Well, H case is a perfect example.
Y si algo se ha hecho, y si en algo ha insistido
And
la fiscal de sala en estos
well,
últimos meses,
the public
es si
prosecutor
tuviera
in the
una
past
unidad
months
adscrita de policía
insisted
judicial
to
que
have
estuviera en la
a
Fiscalía de Criminalidad Informática.
police
Que hubiera
unit
Policía Nacional y Guardia
ascribed
Civil para
to
empezar. Luego ya
the
hablaremos con Ertzaintza y
court.
Mossos de Escuadra si se deja.
And I said,
Pero
okay,
diferencial
let
es
us
seguro que
do
sí.
that, at least to have a
Pero, para
unit
empezar,
from the
Policía Nacional y
national
Guardia
police,
Civil, que
national
haya
police
gente allí
and
mismo con ellas,
Guardia
con
Civil.
sus terminales conectados a sus bases de datos
She
policiales
wanted
para poder coordinar
these
operaciones
people to
y, sobre
have
todo,
the terminals
yo tengo el más
connected,
profundo respeto por las
etc., to
unidades
coordinate
especializadas de
action.
policía.
I
Entre otras
very
cosas,
much
porque
respect
como bien me recuerda la Guardia
specialized
Civil, a la que
units
le tengo
of
un gran
the
cariño,
police forces.
me amamanté a sus pechos.
Well,
O sea, me
actually,
acogieron
because
cuando hicieron un tiempo y
they
en prácticas,
well,
empecé mis primeras
I
operaciones
did
con
my
ellos, algunas de ellas
internships
con gran
with
éxito,
them, my
y
first operations,
les tengo grandísimo
carried
respeto.
them
Sé que
out
hay
with
gente
them. I fully
brillantísima.
respect them.
Eso sí,
They
a
are
efectos legales, a efectos de
very
los tribunales,
intelligent
ellos
people,
son el brazo ejecutor.
good workers working there.
Y el brazo
But
no
they
puede
are
pensar por su cuenta.
the
Tiene que hablar con la
executive
cabeza.
arm.
Y la
Okay?
cabeza en estos casos tiene que ser la fiscalía.
And then they have
Aunque
to
sea un
speak
brazo como el de
through the
Terminator,
public
llenos de microchips
prosecutor.
tan avanzados que
Even
ni
if
siquiera hemos
they
llegado a
are an
descubrirlos,
arm
no
really,
hace
really
caso, saben mucho
sophisticated,
más que nosotros de estas
they
cosas,
know much
pero el
more
brazo
than we
que
know
hable con la
about these
cabeza.
things, but this arm
Y la
should
cabeza
talk
hablará
through the
con los
head.
demás.
And then, well,
Y luego ya si eso, que se den la
the
vuelta,
head
eso
should
es.
talk to the other
Pero
arm.
las cosas
So one arm
se
talks to the
juegan
head,
mucho.
the head talks to the other arm, and then both arms or hands end up shaking each other. Hello.
Escuchando lo que usted ha dicho, se me
Well,
viene a la
listening
cabeza,
to
por
what you
ejemplo,
told us,
lo que he dicho sobre
I can think of,
lo que es la intrusión en anticorrupción y,
well,
y
intrusion
la
in
cantidad y variedad
anti-corruption,
de delitos que se pueden
and
cometer
then the huge
vía
amount
electrónica,
of
vía
crimes that could be
Entonces, a mí sí lo que se me
committed
ocurre es,
online.
¿hasta qué punto dentro de la justicia se
So
puede
my
considerar o
point
se
is,
puede
to
condenar a
what
alguien
extent
vía
justice,
correo
the
electrónico,
justice
por ejemplo,
systems
con una
could
confesión o
condemn
o
someone
con algo que deje
through
patente que hay un delito?
confession or
¿Y
something
de qué
that
formas también
evidences or
asimismo se
shows
puede
up
condenar a una
the
persona si
commission of a
un tercero
crime?
que ha interceptado
Can you
esa
condemn a
comunicación
person if the third
entre
party
esas pruebas?
intercepted
No
that
sé si me entiende
communication
lo que le he dicho.
and hands out evidence for that?
Digamos que ha sido
Did
mucha
you
información,
get my
pero
point?
fuerte. Vamos a ver.
Well, yes, well,
Una confesión por correo electrónico no tiene ninguna
com
validez.
email
Alguien
confession,
tiene que, lo que os he
null,
dicho antes, oralidad inmediata,
not
delante de un
valid.
juez, en persona. Nombre y
Principle
apellidos.
of orality before a judge,
No,
name,
no valen las
number,
pruebas hechas
signature.
por correo electrónico.
Email
Si te refieres
evidence
a través de un
not
correo electrónico
valid.
encontrar prueba suficiente para demostrar
Are you
que ha sido
talking
él,
about finding
Bueno,
evidence
una
through
dirección IP
email
que nos
to
puede
prove
llevar a
this
un
person?
domicilio.
Well, IP
El domicilio
address
puede ser el de los
could
vecinos,
lead
que
us
puede ser
to
un tío que hayáis
address, but
les ha
that address
hackeado
could
el
be
wifi
not your
y ha
address
entrado a
by
través de ahí.
the
Pero
neighbor's
claro, la
address,
policía no es
because
tonta.
the
La
Wi-Fi
policía
network
hace un
may have
estudio
been
de quién vive en ese
hacked.
domicilio.
Yes, but the
Dos ancianos
police
de 85
studies and
años.
finds out who
Buena
lives,
información.
who are the neighbors. Okay,
Y entonces
two
tiran del padrón
old
municipal
people,
y dicen, mira, resulta que en el
85
piso de
years
al
of
lado
age. But
hay un
then
chavalito de 20 años que vive con sus
they
padres.
looked at
Y que
the
está
register and
matriculado
I
en
said,
el centro de informática.
the next door there is a 20-year-old boy studying IT science at the university, and they start
¡Hombre! Si es
and
el
then
estudiante de ingeniería
they
informática.
end up on this
Se nos ha currado,
student.
señoría, mire,
And
tenemos un
then
sospechoso que creemos
they
que
go
está
to
en
the
la puerta
judge
de
and
al lado.
says,
¿Nos
well,
da una orden de
we
entrada y registro?
think
Pues
that
venga,
this
tío, nos da una
person
orden de entrada y
is,
registro, va
we
la guardia,
suspect
Guardia
of
Civil,
this
nos da la
person.
puerta,
Can we
joder,
have a search
discos duros a la bolsa.
warrant?
Análisis,
Well,
forense.
hello, I'm the police.
Oh,
I want to
sorpresa,
take your
cookies de
computer
inicio de sesión de la cuenta
or
del Messenger que se
cookies
utilizó para cometer el delito.
to
Ahí ya no se le
start the
tenemos en el
session
caso,
through which the crime was
Por eso digo, el
committed.
Tribunal Supremo es un
So we
caso
do not
muy
only
difícil.
have an
Solo
IP
con la
address,
IP
we
no.
have much more than
Vale.
that. The
Si es la
Supreme
IP
Court
y
said
algo
not
más,
only IP address,
hace
but
falta un
IP address and something
conjunto
else,
de
yes.
evidencias
You really need
que
to
se llaman
have
periféricas, que
a number of
corroboren,
peripheral
que den una
evidence,
imagen global.
additional
No basta
evidence,
con un único
in order
indicio.
to
Un correo
show
electrónico que
a
es que firmó
global picture.
Jorge Bermudez, que es
Well,
fiscal
an
de delitos
email
informáticos. No digas
signed
que
by
es un claro,
Jorge
cualquiera. Vamos a
Bermudez.
ver si tenemos algo más.
No,
IP,
anyone could do that. We really need an IP address, registry data,
Me
cookies.
refería más bien a algo como,
Well,
por
I
ejemplo,
was
otro caso que usted ha comentado,
thinking
el
or
caso
meaning, well, what you
eh,
mentioned about the NOS case.
no, conversaciones que tienen dos personas
Conversations
que
between
las
two
tienen realmente
people,
ellos y que les puede realmente implicar, aunque sea
private
correo frío.
conversations. Even if we are talking about private emails, at the end of the day, they are
si
used
se ha aportado
as
la información
evidence.
legal. Es
Eso es lo que me refería. Sí.
Yes, what happens if the behavior was illegal behavior? Sometimes these persons are not aware of the procedural rules or of the protocols to incorporate the evidence. And then judges are starting to reject evidence based on email-based evidence. Well, because perhaps email server was intervened. But a server is a communication tool, so there should be a registration that authorizes not only the registry entry, but also interception of communication, for instance. But they didn't do that. So emails found on that server perhaps were found with by making these actions null and void, and perhaps the evidence is out of the procedure. But there is a public prosecutor such as me in each of the regions, and there is another one at the Supreme Court. You know what there is? Not one at the national audience, anti-corruption or anti-drugs. They do not have a public prosecutor. Well, you see? Look at my eyes. Look at my face. Any other questions? Congratulations for your talk. What is your opinion about developments on the law, legislation, and whether you think that it is behind, really much behind the technological advance? Do you think that they will ever be leveled up, or will laws catch up with technological advances? And in your daily lives, what are the problems of attributing a specific action to a specific person? Well, we've seen that through botnets. We know that you can really use a good number of many equipments, to commit a crime. Is it feasible to reach a conclusion? Let us say, well, to accuse a person, a single person. Well, laws will never catch up with technology. That's the way it is. It is a lost case. We shouldn't even try it. I would be very happy if procedural law would make it to the 20th century. Well, no. Well, the problem that we have with our penal code is that it is very outdated. Well, we said before that it was updated after, I don't know, the news. So today we are talking about the Supreme Court of Ana Rosa Magazine and the Court of Appeal of Buenafuente. So nowadays, TV programs modifies or change law. The talk shows, magazines like morning shows. These are 4 million voters, and that raises a social alarm. For instance, this case raises a social alarm. They are voters, and then they said, okay, let us give a legal response to it. The 1995 Penal Code had been reformed 15 times before I passed my exams and became a public prosecutor. Then it's all the time being changed. It's all the time being changed. Well, if you have a link page, you can end up in prison for more than 6 years. Well, some cases make big news, and sometimes they end up changing the law. And then, of course, the penal code should be updated. Well, I don't think we should take part on that race. We should educate judges so that they are able to interpret the law within the context of new technology. So we just don't want to have a tool that fits all sizes. In terms of attributing identities, it's very difficult to do that, whether you use a botnet or proxy or whatever. But sooner or later, users or a crimer attackers
no les pillamos. Esto
make
es una máxima que
mistakes.
dice en el derecho penal que dice que no todos los culpables tienen que ser castigados.
Well, in law we
solo
said
los
not all the
culpables deben
guilty
ser
people have to be punished, but only the guilty people are to be punished. Well, this is as much as I can say.